and I'll give you this mic to share between the two of you, and hopefully, yep, you can feel that that's on. Look, I had the pleasure a few weeks ago of being able to go around your place to just catch up one afternoon, and it was just... I tell you what, I just want to encourage you, there is nothing better than spending time in people's homes and seeing the photos around the wall and enjoying some lovely coffee and just catching up in stories. I've met Paul and Marge, as you do in church, for like a 2-second talk, and that's about it. And I thought, there's got to be maybe some other stories in there. And they started worshipping here along with Marge's mum at the start of last year before COVID rolled in. And Marge, I know your mum passed away during those hard months too, so it was lovely meeting her in those early days, and we'll keep praying for you. It's a big thing, isn't it, all that re-establishment. So I thought it'd be nice just to chat to you. The reason why I want to spend time hearing more of the stories from new folks, but from other folks who, one, it's good to do, and we learnt during Zoom, you can sit beside people in church for like 40 years and still not really know the person you've been worshipping beside. And Zoom was actually great on those Sunday, the virtual foyer, because we'd had a chance to hear more of people's stories and actually saw their lounge rooms and other things. And it was really nice. I had the privilege during the week of just dropping around to take communion to Bill and to Barbara Hunt. And it was fantastic. And walked away with a whole bag of quinces, which I've never had a quince in my hands in my life, let alone made them into jam. And I had a lot of fun with that and discovered the fruit that goes with everything, from a meat side with meat for a chutney, to a jam, to a spread with cheese. What can't you do with quinces? It is amazing. And then with Paul and Marge, I just walked away feeling so encouraged in my spirit. So today's not like the 24-hour interview. It's not going to be like Q&A, but I thought it'd be just lovely to hear a bit of your heart and what drives you. So maybe, Paul, we might just start with you, just a little bit about what you do in life and what kind of gets you up of a morning.
Firstly, John, you'll get to know that you'll regret getting me up the front because I'm one that starts talking and 2.5 hours later I'm still here talking. Yeah. What gets me up in the morning? Love of the Lord. I serve the Lord the best way I can. I've felt called for many years now. I was actually baptised in a Church of Christ when I was about 14 or 15, yep. Bayswater Church of Christ.
Oh, Baysy, yeah.
Many years ago, and I think we spoke about this, John, and
you're
familiar with the pastor that was down there at that time. It's down your way where you live now.
Yeah, that's right.
And and like a lot of people, I guess I walked away from the Lord for, I lived... At that stage, I wanted to be a pastor. That was my whole thing, my calling and everything else. And of course, when I got to my late teens and discovered sex and drugs and rock and roll and all those things, as people do, I sort of walked away for a little bit. And I'd never, and I know this isn't supposed to be a testimony, but it's turning in that way, isn't it? Anyway, lots of things happened. Water under the bridge. I met this beautiful woman beside me who has been my lovely wife for 36 years now, I believe. Yeah, wow. We've had a couple of children together. Marge had 3 children from a previous marriage, and and as a result of all these 5 kids, we've got, we believe, 16 grandchildren and great-grandchildren. We eventually, like everybody else, moved down to the peninsula at one stage.
I think, why not?
And look, we like many of you guys, and I know some of the guys' faces and things that I've seen here. When we first came down here, we were introduced to New Peninsula Church, the Baptist church up the road, as many do, and we've also been worshipping and we were there for quite a few years, and we've been worshipping for the last several years, mainly because it was in the area that we were working in when we first started working in amongst the community in the Tansai area, and also because, as you said, Marge's mother was frail, and we wanted to get her back involved with the church, and we knew her, her years were running out, sort of thing, at the age she was. She was well into her, when she passed, she was well into her 90s.
94, wow.
So she had a pretty good innings. it was the best thing we ever did because we got to meet some beautiful people at you know, a Pentecostal church there, and only a small congregation where I guess like these guys, everybody gets to know everybody, and everybody, you become family.
Yeah.
And I think I told you, John, we had the pleasure of only a couple of years before Vera passed away, we baptised her in our bathtub in the house.
Right,
She was too frail to take down the beach or anything else, and we had this. If you can imagine, we had the whole church in our lounge room, and we've only got a fairly small house, and of course, you know what it's like coming into a bathroom, and we had this 90-year-old woman sort of thing trying to get her into the lucky we had a corner spa bath thing, so it was a little bit bigger than a normal bath, but we baptised her in there, and everybody sort of hanging over the door and everything trying to look in, and it was a fantastic day.
And Eddie, and you've already shown us a little bit of where your heart is and what gets you up. One, you love the Lord. Two, it has lots of different dynamics, but wherever you find yourself, and that's a lovely story with Vera, just the sense of this is the priesthood of all believers. Don't have to wait for some other archbishop to arrive to do something. We're all there, and wherever you are, the kingdom is there, and that's where the Lord could be honoured, and that's where fresh things start. You're a chaplain as well, and do counselling.
I have worked as a chaplain. I'm not at the moment. I run my own business. I'm a Christian counsellor, a biblical. Yeah,
and we've got some cards actually in the foyer for those who might be interested. Yeah.
And I deal with everything. I have clients that are, you know, NDIS with intellectual disabilities. At the moment, you know, a couple of days ago, I was off comforting a woman and ministering to her who's lost her son, a 24-year-old son, just recently, who she actually found him suicidal and so forth. So I do a bit of grief counselling. I do a bit of I deal with a lot of people with anxiety and depression and things like that. And especially in these times, you know, we're seeing great multitudes of people that are really struggling and everything because of what's going on in the world and the stage the world's at the moment.
No, that's good. So we might go to Marge. But
I told you.
It's good. No, because that's the wonderful thing of being in the lounge room. And I did want people to get a flavour of where your heart is, because because I think what's cranking for me, and I'm not going to go into a sermon because we're going to have a great reflection soon, but I think what's really occurred to me. This church has been it was a church plant 20 years ago, something like that. Yeah, so it's a long time. I think where we are now, and every church actually, if it's not thinking this way, it should be. Every church is in a church plant mode. We should be, and at the moment, coming out of COVID, and we're not quite at the end of that, and we don't know what COVID normal is, have to think church plant. Things are different. Some things will remain, some things will continue, but some things just need to be buried and covered over and moved on to discover where the new things are. So when I sat down with Paul and Marge, it was that thing of, these are the flavours for what planting feels like. Priesthood of all believers. Make sure that Jesus is honoured in everything you're doing. And for heaven's sake, don't stuff around just waiting for some magical thing to drop out of the sky to help you. The Spirit is already with you and speaking to you, and no matter where you are, that's where the kingdom starts to flourish. So that's what I loved about your lounge room that day. Marge, do you want to tell us, and I know you said to me that day, you don't like being up front. You'd rather be in the background. So you want to tell us just a little bit about what stirs your heart, what gets you sort of up in the morning?
I think probably people do. You know, so many of us have lost, and I'll admit I was one. I was brought up in an Anglican household until the age of 9. I'm English. We emigrated to Australia when I was almost 10. Yeah. Went to many different denominations of church when we arrived here, and like Paul, reached teenage years, went to work and walked away, basically. It doesn't mean I didn't believe, but I just didn't walk in the way that I should have done. And how can I put it? My family is very, very dysfunctional, right? We have drug abuse, we have broken marriages, we have, you know, so many different areas that are lost, I guess, throughout the family. But I praise and thank, all those who have had input into my life since coming back to the church. And through that dysfunctionality, I guess, that is where the Lord led me. I love working with people. I love interacting and trying to help those who come from dysfunctional backgrounds.
Right.
I guess the Lord has taught me things throughout, where He's led me, and I just love being with other people and teaching how they can overcome it. By putting their faith in the Lord.
Thank you.
I'm not an evangelist. I do it through relationship. I never deny that I'm a Christian. I try to put that up front in the start, but through questions and just walking
and
with
just
people,
walking.
hopefully I lead others.
Thank you. That's really, Thank you both. That's really lovely. And I can stay there. And because too, it's lovely to see different models of this is what the gift that Jesus put in my heart out of my experience, and they all work and they're all wonderful. So it's before you read, Paul, I'm just going to pray for the two of you, for the Lord to continue to grow and to shape and to bless you in all the work that you're doing. Yeah. So Lord, we want to thank you this morning for Paul and for Marge and for the journey they've been on over actually a long period of time, and the way that you continue to speak and to lead, despite dysfunctions and things that happen in families. You love families. That's what we learn throughout the Old and New Testament. When you arrive, you hold nothing as shame. You hold nothing as blame. Instead, you enter in and you begin to work new things. So bless Marge and Paul as they continue to work with all the people that you've given them to love. Keep them strong. Pour fresh measures of the Holy Spirit into them so they walk with wisdom and they walk with passion and they walk with a deep understanding that you already go ahead of them. Lord, bless them, we pray, in Jesus' name. Amen. Paul, if you'd like to bring that reading to us, that'd be fantastic. Thank you. Oh, good. Yeah, just trust Ray. He's always good and on the job. Thanks,
Yes.
Ray.
I should have said too, John, what gets me up in the morning, the great passion I had, is this book.
Yeah.
That is my passion, the Word of God. Today's reading is from 2 Samuel, chapter 9. I'm reading from the New King James Version. Now David said, "Is there still anyone who is left of the house of Saul, that I may show him kindness for Jonathan's sake?" And there was a servant of the house of Saul whose name was Ziba. So when he had called him to David, the king said to him, "Are you Ziba?" He said, "At your service." Then the king said, "Is there not still someone of the house of Saul to whom I may show the kindness of God?" And Ziba said to the king, "There is still a son of Jonathan who is lame in his feet." So the king said to him, "Where is he?" And Ziba said to the king, "Indeed, he is in the house of Machir, the son of Ammiel, in Lo-debar." The king David sent and brought him out of the house of Machir, the son of Ammiel, from Lo-debar. Now when Mephibosheth, you've got to say that word with your tongue tied.
I reckon it's a bit like throwing a dart at a dartboard. If it hits somewhere, you're kind of in the ballpark. So Mephibosheth.
Yeah, that's what he
Mephibosheth.
said. The son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, had come to David. He fell on his face and prostrated himself. Then David said, "Mephibosheth," and he answered, "Here is your servant." So David said to him, "Do not fear, for I will surely show you kindness for Jonathan your father's sake, and will restore you to all the land of Saul your grandfather, and you shall eat bread at the table continually." Then he bowed himself and said, "What is your servant that you should look upon such a dead dog as I?" And the king called to Ziba, Saul's servant, and said to him, "I have given to your master's son all that belonged to Saul and all his house. And you therefore and your sons and your servants shall work the land for him, and you shall bring in the harvest, that your master's son may have food to eat. But
Mephibosheth.
your master's son shall eat bread at my table always. Now Ziba had 15 sons and 20 servants. Wow. Then Ziba said to the king, according to all that my lord the king has commanded his servant, so will your servant do. As for Mephibosheth, said the king, he shall eat at my table like one of the king's sons.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Paul and Marge. That's fantastic. Gemma, do you want this or that? There you go.
I had some things earmarked in a book, and then I realised that I've actually earmarked multiple pages, and let's cross our fingers that the right one is earmarked that I've just chosen. So if not, we'll get creative, and I like that anyway. Sometimes I like having less notes, and then I'm kind of interested with what flows out of my mouth. But today we'll try and keep it a little bit more concise. I'm quite amazed at you know, the coincidences that happen, and you realise that God is actually letting you know something. I think this conversation around disability is one of those areas for me that I was a little bit surprised when John said, this happens to be the reading. Last year I did a unit, I still hang out at theological colleges and different places where I can get out of, I guess, the ministry on the peninsula. Although I love it, it becomes just the bubble. And so one of the things I do is I hang out at Whitley College and do a few units. And last year during lockdown, I did one with a fantastic fella, Jason Garonzi. If you ever do any reading of his, it's really amazing. And he introduced me to someone called John Swinton. Has anyone read any of John Swinton's work? So easy to read. It's not like intense theology, but really practical. And he writes a lot on disability, on dementia, on mental health, and what it actually means to live alongside folks that are experiencing life from one of these lenses, and what does that tell us about the nature of God, the nature of being a human being. And if you aren't into reading something like this, Google his name and PDF, and you'll get just these easy journal articles. That's where I kicked off, and now I'm starving for more John Swinton all the time. So it is about disability, and obviously those of you that know me, I live on site at an accommodation service for homeless people, young people experiencing homelessness, and a lot of the folk that come to live with us do live with disabilities, usually intellectual, because it is a double-storey home, so we can't actually have anyone with physical disabilities. I probably need to work on that, to be honest. There's not enough time in the day, though, to get to everything. And I can remember many years ago having a colleague with an intellectual disability that would help out at one of our programs, and I can remember praying for him with someone else, and I said, just pray that this individual receives, something about healing. And later on, I heard another of my team praying for him in a similar way, and I thought, hang on a second. In the ever after, whatever that looks like, what if we all need to change to be more accepting and loving to this chap? Maybe he is perfect exactly how he is. And that really confronted me. That was a confronting thing, because I think I have this, maybe it's something to do with the Western worldview or society's expectations on what a human being should be. But I had a certain expectation that a human being should be in a certain way, intellectually, physically, maybe some other stuff about sexuality as well, throw it in there. And I think that was the beginning of God confronting me about the way that I expect human beings to actually be. And so eventually I stopped praying like that and just prayed for him to be loved, be someone that recognises the love of others because it's around him. And eventually I started really being tuned into these types of conversations. And I remember a fella saying, you know, in heaven there's going to be ramps everywhere. This chap was in a wheelchair. And that was like just sat with me, and I can remember it rolling around my head for weeks and weeks. And I don't actually have an answer of what to do with that statement, but I think it's something we must live with, and it needs to challenge us. So when we look at what I have to say today, I don't have any tidy answers. I have God is challenging us. The gospel is challenging us. My husband has a chronic illness. And so I live with that, and I think, but healing for that, you know, he's in pain. So, you know, there's no answers that I actually have except pressing into what is right in the way of loving another person. So, I don't know if you've been aware of this ever, but when we came into the world, we had limited abilities, yeah? As some of us are blessed enough to lead an older life, we lose some of our abilities. Is that news to you? Is that? It's not news to you, Cliff? Well, Cliff, let me tell you. As you get older, you may lose some ability. One day it may happen. And look, and I think that's one way of looking at it. But for our mate Mel Bivashev, he's lived his whole life with limited ability, and really, when that happens, from what others have told me that live in a way similar to this fella, you lose confidence. You become bitter with other people. Sometimes you don't want to do anything social. And you know, when someone's been sick for a while and they haven't hung out with other people, then socially you just feel awkward. Sometimes there's anger at the world and with other people, and we become unhealthy as human beings. And so we've got this individual, and who knows where he sits in that world. We can do a bit of a psychoanalysis of him, but I think we'll leave that for another time. But Hebrew theologian Walter Brueggemann suggests that blessed, which is what David offers, okay, Mel Bivashev, blessing is giving someone power for life. Does that make sense? Power for life. And I kind of understand that when you think of, a fella going to the potential father-in-law and saying, will you give me your blessing to marry your daughter? That's powerful life for that to flourish. But in this cultural context, it was very different. So your blessing meant you had status as a human being to have respect among society. People would bring their trade to you because you were blessed by, the king. David's the king. Yeah? So this blessing reached all areas of life. And without that blessing, you had no power to thrive in life. And it was often delivered by a patriarch. Okay? So, we've got a status of someone by David, but it might have been the male figurehead of any household. How might the way that we understand Mel Bivashev to have lived help us to understand what that kind of blessing would have been for him? In the reading that was beautifully done, Paul, there was a little section where David kind of highlights what life will now be like for Mel Bivashev. Did you pick up on any of that? So there was industry. He was able to be included in the way life functioned. There was things around family. There's things about welcome. So his life was now transformed. And then we come back to our theme over the past few weeks. and we think about this kingdom table, obviously it's just a metaphor for what a kingdom life will be, and table is sharing of life. So in an average table, would someone like Melbiveshev be there? And if he was there, how would he participate in that group? Would somebody get him everything he needs? Let me get you a cup of tea. Sit there, darling. Oh, they're there when they say something. Is that the kingdom table? Do they have something to offer that people want to participate in? It's challenging. This book, which I adore, has a quote from a theologian and a sociologist, and I really need to find out more about this woman, Nancy Eastland. Anyone heard of her? Okay, well, she is quoted this by saying, "My disability," this is a lady that lives in a wheelchair her whole life, "my disability has taught me who I am and who God is. What would it mean to be without this knowledge? What would I be absolutely unknown to myself in heaven, and perhaps even unknown to God?" Let me say that again. My disability has taught me who I am and who God is. What would it mean to be without this knowledge? Would I be absolutely unknown to myself in heaven, and perhaps even unknown to God? It's shaped who she is as a human being. What a beautiful thing. And her gift and her personality has come from the way she has been shaped with this disability. And she sees it as her gift. It challenges me. How can someone like Melbiveshev, like Nancy, thrive, have power for life in our community, amongst us?
Isn't that the story of everyone's?
I think it is. Well, eventually we get there, Alan. Hopefully.
Sorry.
No, I appreciate that. It's any more? No? Oh, I'm up for it. I'm so fascinated by this. Yeah, I am. Anyone else? How can someone like Melbiveshev thrive, have power for life amongst us? What does it look like? What do I need to let go of and open my eyes to for this to truly be real?
I come back to one word.
Love. I knew it. You need that on a t-shirt. Yeah. Whenever Cliff says something, the punchline's love. And it's true. I reckon it's true. But don't you reckon that people think they're loving someone, but sometimes the action is more about them rather than, Yeah? Because I can do that with my own daughter. I was doing it because I love you. I was actually doing it because you're annoying me. Yeah. I've got a video that I'd like us to watch as Ray's getting that going. It's from a woman called Stevie Wills. She's a Melbourne poet. I saw her live one time, and another one of those situations rocked my world a little bit. I want to listen to this, watch this, and we'll have a bit more of a yarn. And if this is being recorded, I don't know if it is, Merv. It is? Okay, we'll share this video on our website.
No more can a wheelchair the use of which will be useful around here, these roads of chasms and boulders. No braille, no hearing aids. Speech therapist, physiotherapist, occupational therapist, unreachable, ramps, with unforeseeable, inaccessible, the doctor's care, the teacher's unaware, or strict beyond limits for extra needs they just can't care, or I just don't care. Society's voice may share that no one or bear disability or bear justly for some terrible thing I've done, and some past life for some terrible things my parents have done that I rape justly. Justly, not once has multiple clear 1 inch of the classroom floor that I might learn how to earn food for my stomach, a roof over my head, looking at my front door, poverty. And my time before my life it grips for life and promotes his life by poverty already gripped the deprivation of medical intervention, sanitation, nutrition, and their living space, their working place, the deprivation of protection from serious injury and prevention from serious illness. Working at their front door, disability.
Thanks, Ray. What rises for you when you sit with that? With some words. What are you feeling? Yeah, thanks, Mark. Weeping.
Nothing holds her back
Mm.
from telling her life story.
She is sensational, I gotta tell you.
And it's good for us to watch something like
Yeah, yeah. She's a spokesperson for CBM, Christian Blind. Yeah, yeah. Fabulous. So, what does Stevie tell us about Power for Life from her experience?
Just around the corner for a lot of us.
Yeah, exactly. And the poem is called Cycle, and that's what she describes. The poverty, not only financial, social, spiritual, all those, the health goes hand in hand with disability. How about for others? What can we learn from her life, from her description of that, of what it's like to live with a disability at times? Absolutely.
access and equity
Yes.
for people that suffer these things.
Yes. Yes. And I would say it looks different, what your statement looks different in a society like ours as opposed to it might do in Burma. Yeah? Because I find myself challenged by those. Yeah.
And you can imagine, like Mel, our friend in our story, you know, he would have been there begging for food.
That's right.
He didn't have the modern technology and everything that this young lady has, and his life would have been so much different, and to be taken to the king's table.
Yes. I love that you've said that. So historians suggest that in Jesus' day, first century Palestine, of course, this story is probably 1,000 years prior to that or so, or maybe a bit less than that. You've got 2 years life expectancy if you're on the street as a beggar. 2 years maximum. Powerful life, hey? And but can you see the gift she is? I mean, Pam mentioned that. She cuts through my soul. It jars me to my senses. What a gift. I think the thing I'm most grateful for about the pandemic experience and living with people in such a confined way at essentially a refuge has been recognising gift in other human beings. Because we were all reduced to the same restriction. The 16-year-old with an intellectual disability and myself that leads the centre. And we were in the same boat and we got to celebrate the same birthdays in the same way, and we were just as happy when we could take a mask off we walk out of the supermarket and breathe the fresh air. We're all the same, and what a gift each person is. And Stevie reminds us of that. And I think Melbivashev reminds us of that too. What a gift. And when you read the gospel and you see the way Jesus interacts with folks like this is his core business. Yeah? And it's where he pulls his disciples from, these areas. You know, Bartimaeus was the blind beggar, had 2 years tops to live. He's part of the tribe. This is magnetic dignity. It rubs off on people. It creates more dignity. It's just glorious. And I think that for all of us, we have to have a good look at our sensibilities which we choose to hang on to and live life by, so that when we hear a voice like Stevie, we don't, I can't engage with that. Yeah? Because there's something almost in our social construct that makes us repellent of people that don't fit in the same as us, don't smell the same, don't, speak the same, don't walk the same. We magnetic dignity, if you've got the Spirit of God in you that you're allowing yourself to live by, that's going to come out. Let yourself live by that same love that Cliff describes.
I think it's all about attitude too,
Isn't it?
people and attitude by the
That's right. That's right.
Someone sent me something just in the last 2 days, a lady who was born with no legs and no arms. And she said, I praise God every day because I now know that God, I was made perfect. I'm perfect. I was made in the image of God. And
Yes.
God has made me this way for a purpose so that I can tell others about the Lord, and my whole being is a witness to the world.
Yes, Imago Dei, made in the image of God. Stevie is made in the image of God. Melbivashev is made in the image of God. The woman you described, the image of God. Someone living with dementia is in the image of God. This is confronting. And it is the perfect, loved child of God. And there's something else that struck me earlier this week while I was painting walls by myself early in the morning. everyone else was wise enough to stay in bed. We often use the word diversity, okay? I use it all the time. And I have been the woman that's been asked to come on the board because I'm the woman. And I've been that woman on those boards, and then I've said something of sense, and everyone doesn't even hear it because of that same mess. I've learnt sharper voices. I don't get shut down easily. But I don't know if you figured that out. But then, so there's a thing though. What is wrong with diversity is it is not inclusion. Okay, so this is the problem with our table. Here we are, set the table. Come along, Mel Bivashev. Sit down now. Let me get you the cup of tea. There. That's a good boy. Look at us, diverse. What does Mel Bivashev have to bring to the table that we are experiencing gift from? It's about purpose, isn't it? And it challenges me because I'm the sort of person that wants to feed all the kids a nice dinner that they like, and then I'm shocked when they, rebel because they haven't, I don't know, something hasn't worked right. But at our house we have a roster. Everyone cooks once a week at least, and sometimes I'm eating that food and it's pretty frightening. And there's a pandemic, there's a risk in inclusion. They don't set the table the way I like, Leanne. There's forks in a pile in the middle of the table. What's that about? Oh my word. Am I going to be okay? I don't know. We have an opportunity to live a pretty chaotic life of joy and love led by the Spirit, led by people which are a gift who live with different abilities to us. Let's be led by them, hey? Shall we share communion and remember the kinds of tables that Jesus sat at? Let's do it. So do we all know the drill now? We don't get up here and cough on this stuff. It has lids, but I think we couldn't find a few lids. Oh, did you find them?
There was only one.
Oh, okay, that's supposed to be mine, so that any spittle was,
It's a beautiful image.
Thanks.
I can't see it, Pat. Pam?
One without lid. Oh, yeah. Multitude.
Different abled people. Some of us have trouble with our sight. So come up, in a staggered kind of way, grab your little communion. Some of they lids are a bit dicey. They're just a sort of shield, mainly John's spittle, not mine, of course. And then we'll eat and drink it together.